the book, From Porn to the Pulpit.
My Lord.
Danielle, I'll ask you the same question. How did you arrive at this name of this book, From Porn to the Pulpit? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, From Porn to the Pulpit is self-explanatory of my testimony. Literally went from porn to the pulpit. And I always try to explain to people that when you hear of a porn star, a stripper, a prostitute, you automatically get a negative mindset about those type of people. But I always want people to realize that before I was the porn star, I was a little girl.
Come on now.
And I was a little girl who went through a lot of dysfunctional things in a very abusive household with my mother and father being very abusive toward one another. My mother had enough of the abuse and she divorced my father. But in that, I was left to be raised by my daddy. And daddy was a good daddy, but he was a horrible man. And I witnessed him bringing different women to the house and abusing them, just being a womanizer. And I always let parents know that it's very important to watch me giving birth to this baby. Everything that I tried to suppress had now surfaced. And the same little girl who went into the hospital wasn't the same little girl that came out of up there. And so I just became angry and bitter. And so I ran away from home, 14 years old, got a fake ID, and I started stripping in the nightclubs. And I did this for almost a year until I realized that, you know, even though I tried to act grown, I still was a little girl. Because I was around grown folks doing grown things, and I wasn't ready for that. And so I quickly turned 15 and I moved to Compton, California with my grandparents. And understand that they are strict Bible Baptists, honey. If you in their church, if you in their house, you in church every day. And I just felt like if I was going to be there every day, I might as well get involved in something that I enjoyed. And at that time, I used to love to sing. And so I joined the youth choir. And while I was singing for Jesus, my youth member from my youth choir introduced me to prostitution.
Wow.
Yeah, my choir member. My choir member introduced me to prostitution. Not only did she introduce me to prostitution, but drugs and alcohol. And I found myself being addicted to cocaine and ecstasy. From the age of 15, 16, and 17, I started back stripping, prostituting, doing drugs, selling drugs. Then these porn stars came into a nightclub that I was dancing at. And one young lady said something to me. She said, if you think you're making money now, you haven't seen anything yet. And so I was still technically a senior in high school, and I started doing pornography, not realizing the latter consequences. All I saw is money and an addiction to a lifestyle. And I had everything. You know, I was able to buy the best of the best and live in the best of the best, travel with celebrities, go all kind of places. But it reminded me of a scripture. What profit is it to a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? Because although I had everything materialistically, I was dying on the inside. I was suicidal, I was unhappy, my drug habit increased to the point where I was overdosing, because even though I was able to fly to Miami and eat in the best restaurants and buy the Gucci and the Louis, I was sick. And because I had reached a very low point in my life that I didn't feel like there was anything better for me to do, I had accepted this attitude, I might as well be the best at what I'm doing. And so I traveled across the world prostituting as a high-class escort to different people, and this one man contacted me from New York City. He flew me from LA to New York, and for the first 3 days he wined and dined me, and then after that something switched, and this man became very volatile, and he locked me up in a basement, and he beat me, and he raped me, and he was from the Caribbean, and he chanted voodoo over me, and he told me over and over again, you're not going to leave here, I'm going to kill you. And so although I had been through different situations before as a result of the lifestyle, being raped, being robbed, being stalked, being followed, everything, this time was different. It was something like out of a horror movie. And I knew that I was going to die. I didn't have a friend or an enemy to call. It was me and this man in New York. But because I was a hypocrite, I was a hypocrite. What is that? I lived that lifestyle, but I stayed in church. And so I'm glad I stayed in church, because there were still seeds being planted. I lived the double lifestyle, but while I was there praising and worshiping and listening to the word, I was still planting seeds without my knowledge. And so while I was in that basement, something in me said, pray. And I prayed like I never prayed before, woman of God. And I said, Lord, if you get me out of this, I'll change my life for you. Just don't let me die. And so a few days later, his friend came to that house looking for him and found me. I ended up getting out of New York. I flew to New Jersey where I had a friend of mine who bought me a one-way ticket back to LA, and I never looked back.
So now when you got back to LA, what happened from LA before you got to the pulpit? What happened?
Well, ministry was never on the agenda. Never. I just wanted to live with God because he kept his promise. I said, if you get me out of this, I'll change my life for you. And he did exactly what I asked him to do. So at that point, all I wanted to do was live for him. Ministry was never on the agenda. What happened was I was going to church. I became poor. I became so broke because that was my income. And so I literally lost everything. But what I didn't lose is my determination to serve God. And so even though I was poor and broke, I still held on with the skin of my teeth because I knew that it was God that got me out of that. And I didn't care what I had to do or what I went through, I was going to serve the Lord. And so in the midst of me going to church, I got with a pastor, Pastor Justin Cox, which was in Los Angeles, and I kind of told him my story. And he said, do you mind telling your story in front of the church? Not knowing that his church sat up to 1,000 people. But I got up there and I told my testimony, and from there that video had went viral. And so different people started calling to tell the testimony, still not thinking that I was worthy for ministry because I hadn't been delivered from people.
Come on now.
Because people were saying, how could she, how could you, knowing when they know your dirt, they could never accept the call on your life because they know what you used to do and what you used to be. And so I hadn't been delivered from people. So even though I was telling my story about what God was doing for me, I still didn't recognize myself as a minister or in ministry until I got delivered from people and allowed God to use my mess as a message and my test as a testimony. I started to tell my testimony across the world, television, radio, different churches and universities. And what surprised me was that I wasn't the only one that been through it. And although you never done prostitution or pornography, you may have been molested. You may have been addicted to drugs. You may have went through domestic violence situations. So everything that God had allowed me to go through was not for me, but it was for somebody else.
Somebody give God a praise. And so now you're traveling, and you're sharing your story. How, and I'll ask you this too. All those people that you came in contact with, that the man that held you in the basement and all that. How did you find it in your heart to forgive them? How do you deal with that? How do you forgive after going through all that?
Well, I wish I was like my sister. I wish I was like her. To say it was easy, it definitely was not easy for me because you get this, and I'm from the hood, so I had this hood mentality that I want to get you back, or how dare you do this to me kind of thing, and if I ever see you again kind of situation. It still was like, let me see you in the street. But when I got out of that and I said, you know what, me forgiving you of my heart genuinely is not for you. And it doesn't condone what you did because you was flat out wrong, but it frees me. And I'm not going to allow you to send me to hell holding on to something you did to me when God has brought me too far. And we got to realize that a lack of forgiveness is something that will send us right to hell, because how could God forgive us with our dirty, low selves, and yet we cannot forgive another person? And so when I finally got that in my mind, that your forgiveness is not for them, it's not condoning what they did, it's to set you free. So that's when I was able to say, Daddy, I forgive you. Mother, I forgive you. Man in the street, I forgive you, because it's not for you. I can't. You know how much energy it takes to hate somebody? And that's why we have so many bitter people in the church, because they got so much hate in their hearts from things that they did. I mean, things that they experienced as a child and in their youth. And so some people in church, and you know, I'm not church, I'm from the street. So when I did come into the church, it was some mean mothers and some funky first ladies and some funky ushers. And then as I spiritually matured, I realized that the only reason why you're like that now is because you have not been healed from what happened to you in your past. And so because you have not been healed, delivered, and set free, and you have a lot of anger for what happened to you, now you just bitter, mad, and ugly to everybody. But once you give that thing to God, then your whole continent changes.
My God, you know, forgiveness that's a whole nother thing. It's something that, like you're saying, it takes so much for just not to forgive and to hold that hatred. You know, you're eating away at yourself when you don't forgive. You know, it's like flesh turning on itself and just eating away when you are not, when you don't have that forgiving spirit. Amen. So the thing that we want to bring out tonight in both of these situations is that forgiveness is so important, because you're the one, amen, that's going to deal with what you have to deal with. You're the one that's going to go through the heartache. You're the one that's going to go through the frustration. You're the one that's going to go through when you don't understand that God is saying, amen, if you want me to forgive you, you got to first have to learn how to forgive that situation, that ugly person that did what they did. You got to learn how to forgive them first before you can get your deliverance. My God.
And what helps when you realize, because see, we can church it and we can fake it all to other people, but who you cannot lie to is yourself and God. And so if you just have a moment, if you go home in your prayer closet and you just have a moment to meditate on what's happening right now and think about how dirty you really are and how you fight with that spirit that don't nobody know about, and when you constantly ask God to forgive you and how He always forgives you, no matter how nasty you was, no matter who husband you took, no matter who money you stole, no matter who you lied on, no matter who you did wrong and betrayed, and God can still forgive you and still can love you, then you have to take on that mindset and say, okay, no matter what you did to me, I have to forgive you, because my God always forgives me no matter how bad I was.
My God, what a word, my God. Amen, amen. What would you say to that young girl who may be out there going through something similar to what you went through? How are you using what you went through to really help somebody else that may be going through a similar situation?
For me, outside of the ministry, I have a mentorship where I go to different group homes, juveniles, facilities, working with the very girls who remind me of myself. I told God, for you I live, for God I live, for God I'll die, and you can use me. When we say you can really use me, that means every aspect of you. And so I've dedicated my lives to being to the little girl what I wish somebody was to me. I wish when I was walking those streets at 14 and 15 years old that somebody said, Danielle, you're better than this. I wish somebody would have came out there and said, there's another way. Let me show you something else. And so that's what I am to these young girls. Every girl that I come across, I let them know that you are better than this. You are more than this. You were created to be better than this. And who better to tell you than somebody who lived what you've been through? See, education is one thing, but experience is a whole other thing. And I might not have all the education on human sex trafficking and all these degrees in it, but I have experience. And if I was able to get set free from it and out of it, what can you do for you? God is no respecter of persons. The same God who snatched me out of the pit is able to snatch you out of it. The same girl that came from Compton, California, who dropped out of high school, was able to go back to school, was able to get her education. Who also, the same girl who was a prostitute, got her boy ass. Hello, somebody.